Welcome to The Business Strategist, the show for CEOs and founders ready to scale fast, lead smarter, and build a business that doesn't rely on them. I'm Adam Strong, award-winning strategist, former elite athlete, international speaker, and 3 times best-selling author. After 3 decades in business, I know exactly what it takes to grow, scale, and exit with impact. Each week, I dive into real conversations with industry experts, bold entrepreneurs, and clients navigating the uphill struggles of business, giving you the tools, the strategies to create more profit, more freedom, and more impact. Let's get into it. Are you planning to sell your business in the next 3 to 5 years? Then you already know it's not just about finding a buyer, it's about actually protecting what you've actually built. That's where our sponsor, Adam Benedict, comes in. They're one of the leading premier M&A legal firms trusted by founders to simplify complex exits, protect value, and deliver results. Now, if you want a smart, smoother, and strategic exit, visit adambenedict.co.uk.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Got a car to sell but no time to waste? Hop on to Carvana.com to get a real offer for your car in seconds. All you have to do is enter your license plate, answer a few quick questions, and if you accept the offer, Carvana will pay you as soon as you hand the keys over. They even offer same-day pickup in many cities. Save your time, score some cash, and sell your car the convenient way to Carvana. Pickup times vary. Fees may apply.
What if the biggest bottleneck in your business isn't sales or strategy, it's your emotional intelligence? Now, in today's great show, The Business Strategist, with myself, Adam Strong, we have a very good friend of mine, and we have a lot of history together. His name is Chris Salem. Chris has worked with a lot of Fortune 500 companies. He's worked with small businesses. We've done a lot of collaborations in the past, from the American Speaker Society to virtual summits. I mean, me and Chris have done a lot of things together, and he's a best-selling author. He's also written a book with a really good friend of ours, Jack Canfield, of course. And what I love about Chris is that he not only is he super smart in what he does, his real expertise is in emotional intelligence, in communication and strategy, but he's just an all-round great guy. And from today's episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about EQ, but more importantly, how we can effectively put that into our small businesses, how we can reduce conflicts in our team, how we can create better synchronicity within our teams, and how to develop certain EQ strategies that's going to help you guys as leaders to be able to grow and scale your business even more. Without further ado, Chris, welcome to the show.
Adam, thank you so much. A pleasure to be here. I'm so glad to be talking about this topic today as it applies to the realistic business world that we're in today.
Absolutely. The last time we had Chris on the show was 2022. Can you believe that?
Yeah, God, 3 years. It feels like yesterday.
And it's really interesting. And even though, me and Chris, we speak fairly regularly, we haven't had the opportunity to catch up. So I thought that this would be a great opportunity to find out what Chris is doing, of course, what he's working on. And you know what? It's like I said, it's a really interesting part of the world. So, but listen, brother, it's just great to catch up with you. Let's jump straight in, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely.
Because we're talking about a very thought-provoking topic, which you've created your own framework about, haven't you? And you go into, big Fortune 500 companies and even the small businesses. If you're working with a company that's got it's working with a CEO that's running an 8 or a 9-figure company to the kind of small business owner that's running 6 to 7, have you found any subtle differences between leadership styles with regards to EQ and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, leadership styles vary amongst different industries. Some industries you could still find, a directive type of leadership. You could see that sometimes in public works. If you work for a fire department, a police department, they're going to have to be direct. In some cases, that's necessary because you're dealing with a lot of cases, a life and death situation. Sometimes some conservative industries like aerospace, you could still find remnants of that. But nonetheless, with the, we're dealing with different generational types now. A lot of the baby boomers are moving to retirement. Gen X is also on the verge of retirement, meaning that they're in either in a C-level position or a senior level position. And now the bulk of the workforce are the millennials and Gen Z. And they're going to be the next wave of leaders taking over businesses and corporations going forward. And how they process information is completely different than our generation, Adam. So it's completely, so how we speak to those generations is completely different from people that I speak to that are my own age or within my age range. So this is where a lot of times a lot of organizations are falling short because they feel that how they're leading and how they're communicating this is the way we've always done it, and this is what has always worked. Well, guess what? Is it really working? Because if you continue to have this stagnation, continue to have this conflict, you have retention issues, you have burnout issues. These are all realistic issues that many organizations at all levels face each and every day. All of this can be tied back to breakdowns in communication, and those breakdowns in communication can all be tied back to the state of mind of each of your people. And that's where emotional intelligence comes in. There's a lot of people out there that have high IQs, very intelligent in terms of how they go about doing things, but the EQ level is not where it should be. Now, it's not something that people are just born with. This is something that we can all develop and raise our level of EQ when we are aware of it, and we can understand as a foundation how it impacts everything that we do and how we lead by example and how we communicate effectively to raise the bar to achieve what is important to you.
I want to pick up a point there. I guess we also have to be open to change as well, don't we?
Yes.
Because ultimately, you mentioned a very good point there where a lot of the baby boomers are coming up for retirement, and then you've got the next generation that's coming into kind of more senior leadership positions, but the way they communicate and articulate their message is very different, isn't it?
Correct.
But then do you think then the core fundamentals of EQ will still be the same, or will they also adapt?
But they also have to adapt as well. I mean, that has been the key word over the last few years. It's adapt and agility. And if those organizations are not adapting or agile, they're going to be stuck in the mud, and they're going to be playing catch up for a very, very long time. And if they get too far behind, they may not be in business any longer. So this is why it's so important through emotional intelligence that just like everything else that changes, that it's going to change as well. So it's always progress over perfection, always moving the ball forward. It's not something we ever graduate from or have arrived at something. We're constantly getting better and better and better. This is why it's so important that it's got to become part of our daily routine each and every day if we're going to have more sustainability and move the ball forward.
What would you, from your perspective, and especially working with, businesses of all shapes and sizes, what have you found have been some of the common struggles that instantly when you walk into a business, you're like, yeah, you've got this problem because of X, or because they're doing this, or influencing this? What have you found as the common struggles that a business, and that generally correlates back to a lack of EQ or leadership or whatever it is? What are some of the common struggles that you found?
What I find is a lot of times that organizations just don't create a psychologically safe place for people to make a mistake, learn, and grow. Many people bring in prior experiences into their current roles where they felt like, hey, if I say something, they're going to think I'm incompetent or not smart enough. So I'm just going to play it safe and just fly below the radar, just do what I got to do to get by. But see, just getting by is not going to get you to the next level, especially if your people are, for the most part, are all doing that. We got to encourage autonomy. We got to encourage accountability, owning our roles and duties. And the only way that's going to happen to step that up is creating a psychologically safe place. But number one, where all these issues come from is communication. We just assume and speculate that we are effectively communicating. I can't tell you how many times I've gone into an organization and said, that is not an issue for us. We are communicating very clear, specific, clear, and concise. Everyone's on the same page. And I already know that's not the case because it's evident they have retention issues. They have burnout issues. They have conflict on levels that are above what is healthy in the workplace. They have productivity issues. They're not efficient, and their KPIs are not where they desire to be. All these can be tied back to miscommunication or ineffective communication. And anytime I do an assessment, if somebody gives me the green light to do it and I do the assessment, they are like in shock when they come back and said, I never realized we were not effectively communicating. I thought all along we were. Because that's been the root cause of communication. We just assume and speculate everybody's on the same page or everybody understands what's being said. That's not the case. Again, you have different personality types, different generational types, different cultural and ethnic types where English is not the first language. Do you think there's going to be a breakdown in communication just amongst those three types of situation? Yeah. So a lot of times we take that for granted. We think how we communicate to one person is the same to another, and it is not the case.
I think you make a really valid point there. I guess it also depends on you as an individual and self-awareness, which will come back. But I want to kind of pick up a point that you just made, which was all around the whole kind of psychological safe stuff. What role does EQ play specifically around creating psychological safety for employees that, or for team members that maybe are a bit reluctant to speak up? Any thoughts?
Well, that's got to start at the management level, even at the top, at the C level. If in an ideal situation where the C-suite is communicating effectively, is being transparent, now putting themselves right at the same level as the people that work for them, so people feel like they can say something if they don't understand something, or say something if they feel this may not work, but maybe this will. These types of things. So a lot of times they feel kind of like walled off, like there's just like silos. And that's been the issue with a lot of organizations, especially as they get bigger. They become siloed over time. And this is where communication falls through the cracks. So in an ideal environment, it's when it comes from the top down, or at the very least, it's coming from that business unit manager, wherever that business unit manager is, and how he or she is communicating to their team just below them. And that you can even start there. But ideally, it would be if it came from the top down. And that's where the magic happens. And I've proven it because I've worked with a handful of companies that actually believed in this process, committed to it, and we spent 2 or 3 years working together and saw a huge change in their key performance indicators and addressing issues like conflict, retention, burnout, all of this, which we could track and measured to see how it was improving. And emotional intelligence played a huge part in that, in creating that psychological safety, and then improving how you lead by example, sharing versus telling how, when, or why to do it, developing better ways to communicate through daily team huddles, not just having meetings to shoot the shit, so to speak, or blame the economy or blame this group for not doing their part. We came in with an agenda. We had a specific time where each person only had like a certain time to speak. Everybody understood their role and duties and each other's. And this is where any room for assumption and speculation in the communication went considerably down, and thus reflected upward with the KPIs. And then they would meet later in the day to kind of debrief what worked, what didn't work, and where can we adapt to what is, and make the best out of it. That's the key. And those are the organizations that saw a huge uptick in the KPI, improving the customer experience and accelerating more sales. So these things can definitely be documented. Do they happen overnight? Absolutely not. They take time, especially when you're dealing with organizations with more people. But you got to start with one group and keep layering in over time. And it's through that discipline and consistency of doing it from the top down is where you're going to see the changes over time. We just got to hope, because we live in a capitalistic world, that a lot of times stakeholders don't have the patience for that. They just want the numbers and they got to have them now. This does not work overnight. It's just something that individuals, teams, and organizations have to commit to for the long term to make it work effectively.
So what you're saying basically, Chris, is with regards to, the bigger the organization, these create these silos, but effectively the culture becomes what I call fragmented.
Comes fragmented, correct.
Yeah. But then for the small business owner, which is generally our listener, I guess it has even a bigger impact on them, because it is, well, effectively not even silos. It is one unit, which has affected that. But then then that brings me on to a really interesting point, which is around fear and belief systems. How does EQ, how does it kind of challenge people's belief systems around kind of psychological safety, which is what we were talking about? How does it do that?
Well, the way the EQ works is it starts with self-awareness. You have to be aware of your own emotions. And you got to understand your own emotions. So let's just say, for instance, like for myself, for the first 31 years of my life, anger was the emotion that I primarily operated from. Even if I had a smile on my face and I was very nice and cordial, you would say, God, well, Chris is a great guy. But people didn't realize underneath that I was operating from anger. And it was at any given moment that smile could become rage in a flip of a switch if something didn't go right. And I reacted from that anger. And when you react from that anger, you deflect how you feel onto others. You deflect and blame somebody if something dropped the ball or something didn't work out. You're quick to say, okay, it was their fault, or this team's fault, the customer's fault, the economy's fault. So the thing about EQ, what it teaches you, that there's nothing wrong with having a negative emotion or emotions. That's just your body and mind letting you know that you have something unresolved. And usually that anger is not something it's triggered by something going on at work, but it runs much deeper, oftentimes going way back to your childhood. So you have to really get to the root cause of where that anger is coming from. I know for me, it all went back to my childhood with my father, not having that validation from him not being part of my upbringing at a level that it should have been. And so I was always seeking this validation from other people in place of that. And when it went unnoticed, or that was taken for granted, or people didn't live up to what I did, I could explode and react. And this was just a vicious cycle that I constantly put myself in and put a lot of anxiety and stress onto me. So where I'm saying with this is that through self-awareness, when we can realize what those emotions are, we can know that we don't have to react from them. The thing about EQ is that we can control things in this world, and we cannot control things in this world. And I'll make it very simple. There are major things that we cannot control each and every day. That is other people and situations. So what does most of the world do? We operate from expectations. Think about expectations. They're always caught up in the past and the future, where fear thrives. So you're always attached to the outcome. And when you're attached to the outcome from expectation, you're constantly putting all your energy into the control you can control. And that is the situations that you're in and the other people. Now, what if now through EQ, I can say to myself, I'm going to focus on what I can control only. There's only one thing you can control: yourself. That's it. There's 5 things that you can control within yourself, which I'll explain, which I'll do this shortly. With that, if I can focus on me and let go of other people and situations, I can now lead from intentions. See, intentions will take me to those results too, just like the expectation, except the intentions keep my focus only on what I can control. And there are 5 major things that I can control each and every day. 5. Okay. That is the communication to myself and other people. Most people communicate mostly from their inner critic rather than their inner champion. And when they do you think that when they communicate to other people, it's going to come across in an ineffective way? Now, you might think, well, nobody knows that I'm communicating ineffectively to myself. Nobody knows I'm communicating from my inner critic. I could hide it. No, it comes out. It's like you might think you're hiding it, but it comes out in passive and or aggressive styles of communication. Passive communicators are yes people. They say yes to everything. The reason why is because they're looking for your validation. They'll drop their agenda to do for you. Oftentimes, they'll never live up to your expectation. They'll get mad at themselves for forgoing their own agendas, and it causes them to lash out eventually back at you. That was me. Okay. Aggressive people tend to be perfectionists. They grew up with maybe a mother or a father who was a perfectionist. Perfectionists have a hard time delegating, but when they're put into positions to delegate, guess what? They end up micromanaging people. That's where micromanaging comes from, because they have a hard time trusting someone can do it to the level they can do it. And this is what shuts people down, because they fear, like, if I try to do something, it's not going to be good enough. So I'm just going to play it safe and do the bare minimum because I don't want to be reprimanded by the aggressive communicator. You can see this is what causes all these issues in the organization. So passive and aggressive styles of communication are codependent styles of communication. They don't move the ball forward. They manage the problem and keep businesses in stagnation. But see, if I communicate from my inner champion, I can be assertive in my communication. I'm being specific, clear, and concise with myself. I'm understanding my strengths, my weaknesses. I'm transparent about it. I'm not afraid to make a mistake and own it and share that with somebody. And I'm going to be more specific, clear, and concise with my communication. I'm going to learn to chunk my statements, keep them shorter, and then pausing so most people can understand what I said. Passive communicators have a tendency of going off on tangents. They just, I'm sorry, I want to talk to you about this, but I know you're busy, and I just want to get this point across. I know I might be bothering you, and all of this stuff, and they haven't gotten straight to the point. Aggressive people will throw it all in your lap and demand. But see, assertive communicators chunk things. They make it easier for people to process things, to answer, and they ask a lot of questions, empowering someone now to see that if they drop the ball, okay, I did drop the ball. Now what am I going to do to own it? It puts more people on the offense rather than the defense, which passive and aggressive styles of communication do. They put people on the defense, not on the offense. They also know how to talk to different personality styles, generational styles. Let's say, for instance, you're working for someone who's a D on the DISC profile. They're dominant.
Yes.
They want results. Spare me the details. A passive person likes to over-explain. Is that going to go well with somebody who wants to just the results and less details? No. But if I can get to the point and ask what questions, Ds love what questions. Task-oriented Ds love what questions. If I'm talking to an engineer, a project manager, they want details. They need facts, trends, how-to questions identify with them. If I'm dealing with people-centric types, these are people like marketing, and it could be sales, it could be HR. They want to know who it impacts. I like to open up with a lot of who questions. They want to know who it impacts before they get the results. And if I'm dealing with admin or team support people that don't want to make decisions, don't want to take risks, just want to support the decision makers, great team players, they're systematic in their way of thinking. They like to identify why are we doing this? So when we know how to master how we communicate around those personality styles, even generational styles, baby boomers, you can be more detailed with them. Gen X, you can still be a little bit more detailed, not as much as a baby boomer. Millennial and Gen Z, forget it. Their attention to detail is like you got to get straight to the point. And then think about people where English is not their first language. If I ask my wife, who is Spanish, a question, she's got to now process it in Spanish and then before she answers to me in English. The English language can have words or statements that can mean 2 or 3 different things. In Spanish, there's only one. So do you see where there could be a breakdown in communication? Absolutely. People with EQ learn to master that and become effective communicators. They learn to actively listen with not only their ears, but also with their eyes by reading body language and recognizing tone of voice to see if it contradicts what the words they're saying, because body language and tone of voice make up most of effective communication. Words are very little when it comes to effective communication. Your behavior, you can control that. Is it passive aggressive or assertive? Making sure your behavior is assertive with your communication. Your attitude, you can control. It's happening either for you or to you. See, when we have obstacles, challenges, setbacks, these are things beyond our control. These are situations beyond our control. Instead of reacting to them or using excuses and blaming other people and gossiping, complaining, when we can now embrace it, we can now turn those obstacles into opportunities and then opportunities into results. We welcome it. Our emotions we can control, how we respond versus react. If I'm angry, it's okay. But do I have to react from it? No, I could pause. I can remove myself for 10 minutes. I can sleep on it, then come back and address somebody, respond from a secondary positive emotion, or right now send that email, which will be more positive and constructive versus reacting out of anger. And then finally, my action. I can control my action. See, when I can focus on those 5 things, communication to myself and others, behavior, attitude, emotions, responding versus reacting, and action, and make sure they're in alignment with one another, not contradicting each other, through intentions, trusting the process of what I can control, that will hopefully now lead me to the results I seek. Now, if you can lead by example through empathy and kindness and be resourceful, inspire people to do that in their role and duties, that's what creates interdependency, people complementing one another in this way, not like saying, hey, you look good today. I'm talking about complementing each other in your role and duties. And it's through that it creates a psychologically safe place to learn and grow and become autonomous, accountable, and moving things forward. This is where EQ can play a huge role in making those changes. And it's learning to adapt to what is. We all have opinions and perspectives on things. But if we just see it from the way we think it should be, and other people don't see it that way, you're going to have conflict. It's not conforming, it's adapting. It's adapting to what is and choosing as a team what is best for everyone with the situation beyond our control to move things forward. Sometimes it may go against how you personally see it, but you're doing what's best for the situation with everybody involved. Adapting to what is versus what you think it should be. That's what EQ teaches us.
Hey guys, I just wanted to take this opportunity to make you aware of a brand new tool that we've just created called the Exit Readiness Assessment. Now, it is for founders and CEOs that are looking to exit from their business operations. Now, it doesn't matter even if you're not looking to exit right now, I would highly recommend to go and take the assessment straight away. It helps you to identify areas in your business that you need to work on to help you towards that exit strategy. And at the end of it, you get a personalized report on some of the areas that you're doing particularly well in and some of the areas that you need to make some improvements to. Make sure you head over to readytoexit.scoreapp.com. That's readytoexit.scoreapp.com. Enjoy. I love that. That was like kind of the detailed depth of EQ, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. And I
just wanted to put I just wanted to give you the whole thing, make it so it made sense.
Spill the beans. But actually, just for our listeners right now, if you guys found that a bit of a mouthful, what I would endorse you to do is actually to rewind this and go back to what Chris had said and then start making notes, because he actually focused on 5 key points within what he was talking about. And so what I would do if you had found it a bit of a mouthful is to write down those 5 points and put it into a language that you understand and that it makes sense to you and where you at with regards to business wise as well. Just wanted to pick something up here, Chris, as well, because a lot of our listeners and a lot of the people that I have conversations with are mainly founders that struggle with one key skill, which is delegation, because you've rightly pointed something out. It's because they don't fully trust their team yet or whatever, right?
Yeah.
How does EQ actually help a founder let go of things without them feeling like it's just going to fall apart like a pack of cards?
Yeah. So again, aggressive communicators and behaviorists, this is a hard thing for them to do because they're perfectionists. They have a hard time trusting other people can do it. It's sometimes easier for them in their eyes to do it themselves. But what that's doing is it's taking their time and energy away from other important tasks that will demand more of their attention. So by not trusting that other people can do things is only going to hurt them in their roles, or if they are the business owner, it's going to hurt them and their business. So knowing how to delegate strategically and effectively is so critically important to scale and grow any size type company, especially if you're looking to increase your business valuation. And it takes time because this is something that you've learned up to this point. It's learned behavior, and you have to learn how to undo it to now do it in a way that you can trust the process. And this is not easy. I had to deal with this. I was a control freak. I had a hard time trusting. I grew up with a perfectionist parent, and I became one myself. And it took me a good 3.5 years to learn how to undo this and trust. Even if somebody couldn't still do it to the level I could do it or did make mistakes, I had to trust that they would get better. So it would allow me to focus on what I was really good at. So that as our role and duties were working together to complement one another, it would move us forward. So yeah, it's a process for sure.
Well, do you know what? I really appreciate you saying that and sharing vulnerability, because I think, again, I feel like even myself, if I put into context, I also have, I suppose we've all had issues in the past that have also led to that. Does that make sense? But
yes.
I think it's not necessarily a process that really I struggled with. I think what I really struggled with more importantly is this uncomfortability, if you want to call it that, around kind of challenging a belief system that has been embedded into my DNA for such a long period of time. And to then say to myself, okay, well, what psychological shifts do I need to master in order to disrupt my thought process? What have you, based on your personal experiences and also maybe with clients that you work with, what have you found of some of the psychological shifts that you need to, I suppose, remaster or master new skills?
Well, for me, it's how I think. I had to learn how to think completely different from a growth mindset. I had to learn how to think in the moment, not in the past and the future. As I mentioned earlier, fear thrives in the past and the future.
Yeah.
And when we're in the past, we're now bringing up those self-limiting beliefs from childhood that they're now triggered through a situation or a person that now gets elevated into that situation or who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And it's those limiting beliefs that can now negatively impact how you handle it and how you go through it. And a lot of times people will choose to escape or go around or deflect how they feel onto other people, that's not solving problems or turning challenges into opportunities. That's avoiding.
Yeah.
So with this case, we gotta, by being present, we can learn to operate from our intentions. And our intentions, again, are those 5 things I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Communication to yourself and others, behavior, attitude, emotions, action. When those are congruent in alignment with one another, you're now in sync operating from intentions. Is it easy? No. But you have to practice this. This is why daily routines are really effective in helping people to do that. I had to learn how to meditate. You're talking to a guy who was born with ADHD. It took me 9 months to get into a meditative state because of my racing thoughts.
Wow.
And with that being said, I was disciplined. I did it, even though I didn't feel anything for a while. Today, over 26 years, I have a daily routine. I wake up at a certain time. I make my bed. I meditate. I journal. I work out, resistance training 4 days a week. I walk every day. I do Tai Chi every day to get my body and mind in alignment. I do that every day. I take a cold shower, eventually warm. Then I eat a healthy breakfast. I read a chapter or 2 out of a book and then review my goals. That routine over time has got my mind into the moment. My symptoms of ADHD are now been lowered because I practice this, and it allows me to be present. If I went back to the same old Chris many years ago, I'd be reacting from my anger, from the ADHD, because again, my patience was very, very thin with that, and I could blow up and react like a flip of a switch.
Right.
And these are the things that strained relationships, personally, professionally, and weren't helpful in growing my business. So with that being said, this is why emotional intelligence, it's like if you want to work out and develop a bodybuilder type physique, you got to be consistent in what you eat and how you work out at the gym. You got to treat your EQ the same way. And you don't try to do everything at once. That routine I gave you, you're not going to do all of that at once. You're going to set yourself up for failure doing that. 30 days, do one thing you've never done that's going to serve you. After 30 days, continue to do it. And now layer in another habit and do that for 30 days. After 2 months, you'll now have 2 habits.
Running a business comes with a lot of what ifs, but luckily there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
After 6 months of using that same process, you'll have 6 habits that will become a routine that will help you to start thinking in the moment. So when people ask me, Chris, what are your expectations for making this project work? I don't have any. Well, how are you going to get this done? I said, I got the goals, prioritize them, I rank them, I've assigned systems and activities to execute on each of them, and I'm going to focus for my intentions on everything within my control. What I can't control is you and all the other people that are associated with this, or the outside situations that could impact this. But I'm going to focus on what I can control from those intentions every day to get to those results. That's it. That's all. And that will lower the stress, that will lower the anxiety, the feeling of being overwhelmed, the feeling of feeling frustrated, because all of that's tied to the fear that you have tied to the outcome to achieve. This is why people get overwhelmed. They're like, oh my God, I got to complete this project in 2 weeks, because they're focused on, I got to get the project done. Think of it like a puzzle. If I have 100 pieces to complete the puzzle, that's my project, but I only have 12 pieces. Why am I worried about the 88 pieces I don't have? I'm focusing only on the 12 I have now. I'm trusting the process that the other 88 pieces will come into my control at some point before that deadline to complete the project. That's how I approach things. And it's, for the most part, worked very, very well. Does that mean you win every time? No. There's no perfect world. But I have more wins than losses with that type of format through EQ than the other way around.
So one thing that I'm picking up from you is self-discipline. I mean, because I know you pretty well, I know for a fact that you've had that routine for so long.
Yeah.
But then, you know, does that us as leaders then become more predictable? Because then if we're then more predictable, then does that also mean that can lead to stagnation or the inability to be able to not grow and stuff, because you have then built a new belief system, right? And so
no doubt about it. It's and that habit, those habits I just talked about, doesn't mean you have to do those same habits for the next 26 years. It's just worked for me. You could change it up. I mean, I used to do yoga, you know, and now I do Tai Chi. So I've mixed it up a little bit. So it's sometimes we have to adapt. Remember, I mentioned the word adapt. EQ is always adapting. So sometimes when something is no longer working now or serving, okay, maybe it's time to let that portion go and now incorporate something in its place that will also serve you to fill your cup, to be the example, be a resource to help somebody else do that as they observe through your communication, behavior, attitude, emotions, and action.
Yeah.
So yes, you don't have to be doing the same thing, like where you eat the same food every day, right? That can get boring. But it's knowing when to adapt to what's no longer working. If it's working, then why stop doing that, right? That would just be crazy.
Yeah.
But if there's some part that's no longer working, then we have to adapt to something else to replace it.
But I guess it also
Correct.
depends on, from my perspective, if you're living in the moment, you're probably not like we're very good at giving direction to other people, but when it comes to our own internal self, like it's very difficult to get the top-down perspective. Like we might believe that it's working, but in reality, to someone else's perspective, it's probably needs to be changed or it could be improved upon.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Correct. This is why accountability to yourself and having an accountability partner is key. So great leaders will have accountability partners. They can see our blind spots.
Love
and
it.
just even if you're a coach and you could see this in other people, but you can't see it in yourself, hey, that's where a coach for you can help see that. We sometimes can see that in other people, but we can't see it in ourselves.
Yeah.
So again, we're always teachers and students simultaneously in this process.
Interesting. Just had a thought process of a few calls that I've had recently, and a lot of them with founders that have got small teams or medium-sized teams, but they've taken a lot of the taken a lot of the sales and marketing on their shoulders. How can EQ be used in, say, a pitch presentation or a client meeting to build
huge
trust? And I know there's a lot of what I call psychometric testing, and there's lots of tactical tools out there, but give us some some three strategies about how to use EQ.
Absolutely. I do this in presentations that when I do this as a professional speaker, when I speak at leading industry conferences, how by developing your EQ and understanding your own EQ and then others, it gives you the ability now through a sensory acuity to pick up on when you're talking to body language, eye contact, tone of voice, certain words that are being said. So I know how to adapt my communication to that. So even when I go to speak in front of an audience, I'm not coming in with a canned presentation. I come in with some structure, what I'm going to talk about, but I know I can adapt on a dime based upon what the energy I'm picking up in the room. So when I'm doing that, I'm now consistently adapting to overall the personality for most people in that room. It could be the generational types in that room. It could be the cultural and ethnic types in that room. And by adapting my body language, my tone of voice, my eye contact, what I'm sharing, asking questions, getting engagement, I'm building more rapport and trust faster than, say, if I were now approaching everybody the same, how I've always done. And through that rapport and trust, I got people coming up to me. I have a custom speaker influencer program over 13 years where I've taught people how to do this. And this is how I generate most of the business in my consulting coaching, is speaking at conferences, because I know how to plant those seeds. I'm consistently speaking to the overall people in that room. What is the challenge that could be better for them? What are the results they seek and don't have? And I do this by adapting to the overall personality types in that room, generational, cultural, depending upon, it could be a mix. And you could tell when you're building rapport and trust, people are not looking at their phones. They're looking at you. They're asking more questions. They're leaning forward and they're engaged. That is going to give you a sign that people are building, and you're building rapport. And now you've gained a level of trust. They don't know you personally yet, but it's enough trust for them now where some of those people will come up to you and start asking more questions. And now you can build a relationship with them that in a shorter period of time can turn into a customer or converted business. It's a game changer, what EQ can do. And I use it as a foundation, all the types of sales acceleration strategies I've worked with organizations, or how to present more strategically and effectively to gain that rapport and trust and eventually respect. So yes, EQ can play a dramatic role in making that happen.
Love that. Very cool. I know we're coming towards the end of our conversation, but one final thought here. What's one daily EQ habit, say, one of our listeners or a busy founder can start today? Any thoughts?
Correct. Yes. So what I would do is, just when you face a difficult situation, which we all going to do, or you're dealing with a difficult person,
Yep.
say to yourself, just stop yourself for a moment, take a breath, and say, what can I control in this situation or with this person? What can I not control? And just write it down. Don't put it in your head. Go somewhere, write it down. And then you'll realize by doing that, you're going to catch yourself to know that I can shift my thinking at any given moment to now focus on what I can control versus what I can't. And to now I'm going to adapt to what is to make the best out of this situation or with this person. Doesn't mean you're conforming. We're not conforming. We are adapting. Those two words are different. They're not the same. So it's very important by doing that. That's going to put you in a better place of power to address this and to hopefully have a better outcome as a result of it.
Yep. Love that. Some good stuff. Just as we're coming towards the end here, I'd love for you to share with our listeners about what you're working on. You've been doing this for donkey's years. You've got your frameworks, You've written books or whatever it is. Like, what does the next 10 years look like for you, Chris?
Well, I'm getting old. I'm 58, so I look at it this way. I'll be doing this absolutely in terms of coaching, consulting, training till I'm maybe 66 years old, but I will never stop speaking on it. You'll always find me on a stage somewhere at a leading industry B2B conference as a keynote breakout speaker. And my goal is to really bring what I shared here today to as many leaders and organizations as I can. The privilege of bringing this into the Department of Defense Pentagon. I'm doing a 2-day training with their mid-level managers just on what we're talking about here on effective communication through EQ.
Wow. That's so cool.
And so people are finally starting to open up and understand this, and they're not in the weeds anymore, but there's still lots of people in the weeds, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And the way the technology is advancing and the way the generational types are advancing, if we're not adapting and making these changes, it's going to be harder and harder to catch up.
Yep.
And you're going to be in a really tougher situation than you've ever been. This is the time to adapt and adopt these skills to become better at communication, because if without communicating effectively, you're going to continue to have these problems and they're never going to get better.
Love that. Well, first of all, Chris, just want to say thanks so much for jamming with me. I really appreciate spending a bit of time with you and catching up with you. It's been a great jam, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Adam, for having me on today.
So for you guys listening in, listen, me and Chris have spoken about very interesting subjects around EQ. What I would highly endorse you to do, because we've covered a lot of groundwork in today's topic, go back and rewind. Hey, make some notes, put it into ChatGPT and put it into a language that you understand, but more importantly, how you can actually build some strategy and a framework that is adapted for you so that you can improve your EQ and your assertiveness and your self-awareness and stuff like that. So that's what my tips for you guys are. So listen, hope you've enjoyed today's episode with me and Chris. If you have, please do me a favor, leave a 1 or a 5-star review over on Apple or Spotify. We greatly appreciate that. Anyway, from me and Chris, hope you speak to you soon. And rock and roll. Take care. Cheers now. Bye-bye.